Data center.
Thank you, Mayor. At your last meeting, you had a conversation about moratorium for data centers. So we've come back today with a proposed resolution, and I do want to turn to the city attorney. I think this is kind of an unusual use of moratoria, and just want you to kind of understand the unusualness of this before you take this action. So I'm going to turn it over to Dan.
Sure. What I have to offer, it doesn't suggest that you don't do this, but understand state law regulates in a pretty comprehensive way local governments adopting moratoria. It's a land use matter, so it's covered in Chapter 197, which is a statewide comprehensive land use planning statute. And the statute anticipates that most moratoria will be based on lack of public facilities, sewer, water, streets. So it's kind of like, we'll shut this down because we don't have water. And it anticipates a limited duration, maximum of 2 years, to fix that problem. And then it says also there's another kind of general category, compelling need. So in these kind of moratoria that you've suggested for data centers, it's akin to a common model that we've seen in the past decade or so, cell towers and short-term rental moratorium, and kind of a new development thing that was launched out on the American market, and local governments don't have the code regulations in place to address them in a way that the local government wants to. So they said, we're going to shut this down, meaning we won't accept applications, process, or approve applications. So remember, it's a land use type thing for these until we get our regulations in place. And it requires a certain amount of process, a certain amount of handshaking with DLCD prior to doing that, which we haven't done yet. We could kind of install this and go through, I think it's a 45-day pre-hearing notice, and it requires a public hearing prior to adoption. And when I've done these in the past, it's been kind of a more pressing concern. So for example, a lack of public facilities in one case. So you're shutting a door, and as developers are trying frantically to get in. And in this case, you don't have that problem. You don't have a land rush of cell towers wanting to site. And in this case, data centers, you don't have a land rush. So you also have in the near term, maybe by the end of this year, the adoption of your comprehensive revision to the development code, which would be the vehicle for addressing standards for these things.
So as Dan and I reviewed, I definitely heard from you that you didn't want to make this a big project. You weren't looking to add workload. You really just wanted to be clear kind of on your stance of data center. So Dan and I are comfortable with the resolution that's before you and not going through the full process. If someone were to challenge the moratoria, then we probably need to go back and follow the DLC process, or or take some other action. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. We both think that this resolution is appropriate in response to your request.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'm going to preach a little bit here. So, I mean, I read some newspaper, like there is a head spinning amount of investment occurring in this area. So while there is perhaps not a land rush of cell towers, there is an awesome amount of investment happening in AI, data centers, computing power, et cetera, et cetera. Big piece in the Times this week about the insufficiency of our electrical grid backbone to meet the needs like nearly right away. I was approached by 2 different individuals unsolicitedly about this, one of whom said basically, you guys are silly for doing this because data centers are always 40 acres and you don't have any. And another person who said, the second floor of the Sprint building, the county administration building, is a data center by name definition. And I realized, well, I can't refute that. Like, I don't know what a data center means, but in my opinion, breakneck speed is not an inaccurate description. And it just seems like before somebody figures out a way to squeeze it into what we do have, I'd love to have a moratorium. Gladys. Doug.
Well said. I agree with what the mayor just said. And Dan, you had mentioned that sort of the impetus for this was we were discussing as part of the development code changes. Language to be in there to reflect this without, a moratorium being needed, but given the breakneck speed of what's happening and the amount of money and investment that's going into this, and out of the abundance of caution, I think it behooves us to hit the pause button. However, if that's more difficult than changing the code, I'd say let's change the code.
The timing matters because not so much that you'll have the new code in place before relatively quickly, and the industry can address that. My view, you'll have the code in place before any legal challenge gets heard through LUBA or through a DLCD enforcement order. By the time that comes to fruition, you'll have it adopted. So that's kind of the time frame I'm looking at. Not that you're going to have a land rush of development proposals. It's any potential enforcement order. And but my work with data centers is limited. I represent Morrill County, where there are a lot of big data centers. They do need a lot of space. I think what you're referring to, Paul, is what we call a telco hotel, kind of a switching center. But data centers need, like the Dows, one is 30 acres, another 40 acres, and another 90 acres. You have 3 of them. In Morrill County, they're much bigger than that. Wow. So that gives you some level of what they're looking for. Also, what they're looking for is love from the community. And this would express lack of love, which is, I think, the message you want to send.
Thank you. Guys.
But what about, so I think what we're saying is, let's put a pause until we have our code put in place, right? And I hear you saying like that could cause a potential issue. So then do we add language to say that, we will reevaluate during our code review? Because we have other things in our work plan that we're trying to take care of. I hear the points that both of my peers are bringing and absolutely agree. But what is to prevent like a private property owner that has 40 acres of land to say, hey, I'm gonna build a data center with this?
With the revised resolution has a provision that says during the term of this moratorium, the city shall undertake analysis and public process necessary to develop appropriate policies and regulations and standards governing data center development. So that's what you're going to do.
We're just pausing, yeah.
And it kind of tells the industry, like, to the extent you want a site in Hood River, we don't have 40-acre industrial sites, and I wouldn't recommend you sacrifice them for this use. That, go somewhere else until we get this figured out. And I think it sends that message. That's the message I think you want to send. And, I don't think you're going to get the cell industry would sue you and to get a moratorium lifted. I don't think the data center industry isn't. They'll go to the Dalles where they're loved. They'll go to Prineville where they're loved, or these counties where they have port districts that love them.
And
I have a question for Dustin. How many data center applications have we received to date?
I think I know.
We have not received any data applications or data center applications today. However, we have included in the draft code some placeholder because of its, it is becoming a more prevalent use that is conspicuously absent in your code that was drafted at the time that the rotary vote was the #1 data center purveyed by Ma Bell. So trying to bring that up to speed is important, but no, we have no applications pending.
Have you had any pre-applications or any inquiries about this as a potential use?
No pre-application, no one who was outrightly stating that they want a data center.
And I'm curious to Gladys's point of like a private home landowner, if they wanted to put a data center on their property, they'd still have to go through all the right zoning and permitting and you couldn't just throw one up.
Yeah, this is not, I don't think even under our current code would be considered a use by right.
Okay, yep.
So,
Okay, thank you. I think had said at our last meeting, like, it doesn't, if our legal counsel is telling us it doesn't hurt to have it in place, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm, based on the research I did, and I'm not an expert either, but you'd have to have for a small data center, 10 to 20 acres. And then for like anything for AI or cloud, it was 100 to 300 acres. The other kind of key aspects that a data center developer would want is access to high voltage transmission lines, nearby or new electrical substations with long-term power contracts, fiber connectivity and cooling and water. And I think that I've learned actually that there is fiber underneath the Columbia River, which is one reason why they like our area, but I would think that, or I guess the gorge in general, and if we're talking about Morrow or, I think they, some of these other places, but, I don't see this as a particularly immediate threat. The rest of council thinks this is a good idea. I'm not, use it.
I'll just say, Counselor, that the speed in which this is being implemented throughout the country is breakneck, unprecedented, industrial revolution 2.0 sort of stuff. And a lot of the things that you just mentioned about, data centers requiring this, and this, they're violating themselves, such as power grids. We're seeing tons of use of generators, diesel fuel, that sort of thing, to be able to operate these data centers. They're trying to get the infrastructure put into place in the AI race. So whoever wins that, in the estimation of everybody that's out there sort of in the accelerationist camp that's saying we should, whether it's Oracle or other businesses that are doing this right now, they're trying to get as much land as they can, spending lots of money doing it, and not making the wisest decisions in a lot of cases, just to sort of put the stake in the ground. So so for me, that's why it's not quite cart before the horse, because the speed is just unprecedented. So for me, that is, if there was somebody that was making an application tomorrow, all that sort of stuff, like Dan said, I'd want them to know that Hood River is not a community that's willing to bend over backwards, rezone, do things to take land that we have to be able to accommodate a data center. Because there's a lot of cities that are really interested in this model, because it's a lot of funding that they'll get, in terms of tax revenue and whatnot. So failing cities that are put in the position that have budget woes to say, yeah, let's do some rezoning, because man, we can make a whole lot of money here. And I think for us, based on conversation so far, I don't think ethically we're there to do that sort of thing. So abundance of caution. I'm personally fine with, if it gets challenged, let's cross that bridge when we come to it. But definitely looking forward to the development code having language in it, like it says here in the resolution, to more accurately address modern technologies like this.
I understand that, and I appreciate that perspective, and you probably have done a lot more reading on this than I have, but I also think, beyond just data centers, what is the message that we're sending as a city council of, to businesses that want to be established here? Because, we've all heard about our budget deficit for next year, and, I think that maybe it's worth at least stating for the record that we're not opposed to any businesses coming to Hood River. And I just think that we might not enjoy a reputation of being a place that's not particularly easy to build or develop, or plant your stake and start a business here. And I just, if it's not an immediate threat, I guess my mind is going to, if this is not an immediate threat, are we inadvertently telling industry that we don't want them here at all? And that's not the case. I think we probably would want responsible, good industry to come here, because as much effort as we're trying to make in putting in affordable housing, if we don't have jobs here and we don't have industry here, and we don't have, if people aren't here investing in business, then yes, we'll still have demand for housing because people want to live here, but we're trying to promote a vibrant community with businesses and schools and housing and all of those things. So that's kind of where I was thinking about.
Madison and Dept.
Thank you both. I understand both perspectives, but I think this is really just, let's put a temporary pause on data centers. I do agree and understand and agree with you that we don't want to be a community that doesn't welcome business, but I think with this one specifically, we've seen examples of the secondary impacts to the environment overall. And until we get our code up to date, that it's just, let's put a pause on this until staff has more time to dedicate to additional work to figure that out. And there has been evidence of, you know, smaller data centers and larger ones. So I hear both perspectives, but I think this to me is really clear that we are saying, let's put a pause on data centers and not all businesses overall.
Yeah, that's the same point I wanted to make. It's about data centers. I'll also make the point that personally, I don't think any business should be able to do business here. We should be not what's the right word I'm looking for? Not piecemeal, look at every single business and say yes or no or yes or no. But we have, you know, for example, big office agreements town here, you know, that was put into place. So there are some businesses that we're saying no to. But specifically, this is data centers.
It is a resolution.
There is a suggested motion in the packet.
And a revised resolution for your consideration.
Right, that was sent to the village.
Do I need to note the revised resolution? Does it have a different number than what's in the packet?
Same number.
The motion is still the same.
Okay.
Same.
I move that we adopt resolution 2026-07, establishing a temporary moratorium on data center development within the city of Hood River through December 31st, 2026.
Moved by Stephen,
Second.
second by Rivera. Thanks for your good conversation and discussion, you guys. I appreciate you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you.